We shall go ahead with planarity. So planarity is a type of geometrical representation of the graph or the diagrammic representation of the graph. So when we represent, you know that the graph is not a diagram. Graph has a diagrammic representation. Graph is a set of vertices and edges. So when these relationships are picturized on a paper, then it is a diagrammic representation. When you draw this picture, if you can draw the picture in such a way that all edges are on the are planar, or in other words, are in one plane, or they do not overlap. In other words, if the edges are drawn in such a way that they do not overlap, then such a representation is called planar representation of the graph, and such a graph is said to be a planar graph. So the definition is all edges in that graph, if can be embeddable in one plane in its diagrammic representation, then the graph is said to be planar. I'm very sure you have understood that. Okay, when an example is given, you will understand that. One word of caution, in this particular presentation, there are some mistakes which inadvertently have entered while preparing the slides. Dr. Javed will note them, but however, you should be very cautious to note them down, because you will just ignore whatever has been taught today, because it is not for any assignment immediately. But later when you do it, you should not, when you look through the lecture again, you should not do the same mistakes. All right, please note that. Dr. Javed also will note down. So here is a complete graph of 4 vertices. A simple graph, of course, no parallel edges, no self loops, and not even pendant edges are considered. But this is a complete graph of 4 vertices. What is a complete graph? The graph which has got all edges inserted in the graph. All right. This is a complete graph, but look at these two edges. You are seeing my pointer. The pointer shows these two edges. These are drawn to overlap one above the other. Is it all right? So this is not the planar representation of the graph. This is non-planar representation. However, it has a planar representation. You can see that these are all planar representation of the same graph of 4 vertices. So if you think that this edge could be elastically pulled out and put here, like here, then this becomes a planar graph. You can see that. And here also, you can clearly see the same graph, which has got a planar representation. Naturally, once a graph has one planar representation, it can have many number of planar representations. And these are all isomorphic versions of the same graph. Of course, this is non-planar representation, whereas these two are planar representation. Also later, you would be knowing the difference between these two representations. In this representation, one edge is shown as a curved edge. Or in other words, in order to achieve somehow the planarity, I have twisted the path of an edge. I have twisted the course of an edge. All right, that may be true, particularly with the general graphs, but that is not necessarily true with the simple planar graph as shown here. And this planar version shows that all edges are straight line edges. All right, later we will see little later we'll see little more about the straight line composition of a planar graph, but you can see that this here is a non-straight line edge, making somehow this graph a planar graph, and this is composed of straight line edges only. Anyhow, 4 vertex complete graph is a planar graph. Okay, that is the these are the examples. Okay, all right. So now simple, we will consider only simple graphs. we will consider, let us see which complete graphs are all planar graphs. A simple graph of one vertex, naturally 0 edges, is a complete graph, and no doubt it is planar because it's only one vertex. And this is a simple graph of two vertices, and two vertices simple graph will have only one edge, and surely that it is a planar graph. And that of three vertices, a simple graph of three vertices shall have three edges, and that's a planar graph. Now just now we have seen that a simple graph of four vertices, which is complete, which is a 4-6 graph, is also a planar graph. Now we shall go to 5 vertex, isn't it? So graph of one vertex, a full graph of one vertex, a full graph of two vertices, a full graph of three vertices, a full graph of four vertices. These are all planar. What about a graph of 5 vertices? We shall try to build up. So this let us consider a graph of 5 vertices, and when it is a full graph, then we call it as a K5 full graph. This is K4, this is K3. So we shall call it as K5 full. Let us see how it is whether it's a planar graph or a non-planar graph. So this is the 5 vertices, and the 5 vertices. Let us start from one vertex and try to. So let us this set of edges will make one inner region and an outer region. All right. So how many edges are inserted? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in fact, now the degree of every vertex is 2. In fact, every vertex can be connected to 3 more vertices, isn't it? So now every vertex is connected to 2 vertices. It has got to be connected. This vertex has got to be connected to this vertex. This vertex has to be connected to this vertex also. 2 more has got to be connected. Only then this vertex gets a complete connection. Let us see what would happen. Starting from this vertex, we have inserted these 2 edges. Of course, this vertex has become complete, and you can still see that all edges are planar edges only. So to this extent it is planar, but it has still not become a complete graph of 5 vertices. It is complete only with reference to this vertex. This is not complete with this vertex. This is not complete with this, and this is still not complete. This is also still not complete. Okay, at least one more edge is required from here. All right. So let us see the next. So now from here we are trying to complete this. So now, of course, I can put a edge like this, and I can put an edge in an inclined way like this. But nevertheless, it is still a planar representation. So till now it is a planar representation. This is full, and this is also full. Incidentally, this is also full. Okay, this is also full. What is not full is this vertex and this vertex. Now, if I connect these 2 vertices by one edge, this graph becomes a complete graph. But where to put? Can I put it inside like this? No, it crosses over this edge. Can I put it outside like this? No, it still crosses over this edge. Okay, so let us try that. So when I try that, if I put the edge, it crosses over like this, or instead that, if I try this, it still crosses over the edge. Therefore, this graph of 5 vertices and 10 edges, which is a complete graph of 5 vertices, is not a planar graph. In fact, it is Kuratowski's. It's also called Kuratowski's first non-planarity. In fact, somewhere I had written it down here. It is called Kuratowski's first non-planar graph with minimum number of vertices. First non-planar graph with minimum number of vertices, just with 5 vertices. First non-planarity would get inset. This first non-planarity is because of complete graph of 5 vertices. Okay, it is because of complete graph of 5 vertices. A complete graph of 5 vertices is the first Kuratowski's non-planar graph. It was Kuratowski who found out this. Therefore, they are called Kuratowski's graphs. Kuratowski's complete graph of 5 vertices is a regular graph. What is a regular graph? You already know that the degree of every vertex is same. Then it is called a regular graph. Now you remove, you decide to remove this edge, or you decide to remove any one edge. then it becomes a planar graph. So if you remove one edge, any edge for that matter, K5 minus E becomes planar. In other words, 5 vertices, 9 edges is planar. 5 vertices, 10 edges is non-planar. If you remove any one vertex, definitely it becomes a 4 vertex graph. Therefore, it is planar. So if you remove any vertex, then it is planar. Remove any edge, it is planar. Remove any vertex, it is planar. Okay. So if conversely, if a graph has a subgraph which is K5, then that graph is a non-planar graph. There is a very big graph of n greater than 5, e greater than 10, and if that particular graph has a subgraph which has got K5, which is K5, which is complete graph of 5 vertices, or which has got Kuratowski's graph of 5 vertices, then it is non-planar. Then graph NE is now planar. Otherwise, it becomes non-planar. It is not now. Then it is non-planar. Javed, please note that it's not now planar. Then GNE is non-planar. Is it okay? Okay. So therefore, I'm sure all of you have become very smart. You must have been thinking what type of questions could I ask for the final assessment. But if I give the hint like this, it may not be asked. But better, you should also think of what questions could be possible. In fact, the candidate who can think of the question based on what is taught has really understood the subject, because he would be thinking what questions could be possible in that area. So start thinking about the possible problem, and everyone will get only one problem. Okay, each one will get one problem. Therefore, from all these portions, I will be setting about 46 or 47 problems. Okay, so now given the matrix A or given the matrix X for the graph, then if the matrix contains K5 in that, then the graph becomes non-planar. Therefore, the assignment could be to check whether the matrix contains a K5 component. All right. All right. Okay then. Now K33. This is second Kuratowski's graph. The second Kuratowski's graph is called K33. What is K33? The 3 vertices are in one set and another 3 vertices are in the other set. 3 vertices are in one set and another 3. That is what is 3. K6 is a complete graph of 6 vertices. But this has got 6 vertices in such a way that there are 3 vertices in one partition and 3 vertices in another partition. And there should be edges between the partitions, not the edges inside the partition. So you should understand that all sorts of edges will be in between the sets, but no edge will be within the set. Then what is the maximum number of edges that can be possible from one set to another set? So every vertex here in one set, every one of the 3 vertices in one set should have the connectivity with all 3 vertices, right? So that is what is the complete graph of 3. It's a bipartite graph, 2 partition, bipartite graph. So edges are between the partition sets and not within each set. Okay, let us see. So one set has 3 vertices, another set has 3 vertices. Let us see how many edges can be possible. Naturally, you know that there must be 9 edges. This mapped into 3, this mapped into 3, this mapped into 3. 3 is a totally 9 edges. That is the complete graph. And that is Kuratowski's second graph. Okay, Kuratowski's first graph is the complete graph of 5 vertices. Kuratowski's second graph is complete graph, bipartite graph of 3 vertices. So let's start from V1 and see whether the edges that we insert can be planar. Yes, V1 to V4 is planar. V1 to V5 is planar. V1 to V6 is certainly planar. So we have been successful. We have made V1 complete. Now let us try V2. Starting from V2. Okay, so these are already there. Starting from V2, so V2 is connected to V6. Yes, it is planar. V2 can be connected to V4. Yes, it is still planar. V2 can be connected to V5. Yes, it is also planar. So V2 is also complete. V2 is also complete. Now let us try with the V3 now. Let us try with V3. So these are already there from V1. is already there from V2. These are already there from V2, and V2 is complete. V1 is complete. Let us try from V3. V3 to V6, good. It is planar. V3 to V5, good. It is very much planar. And now V3 to V4. V3 to V4. Try all the possible ways. It cuts. This cuts an edge, crosses an edge. So it is non-planar. So we try to draw it in a different way. I shall distribute the vertices in the following way. And let us see, V1 is connected to V4. Yes. V1 is connected to V5. Yes. V1 is connected to V6. Yes. All right. What about V2? V2 is connected to V6. Yes, possible. V2 is connected to V4. Yes, possible. V2 is connected to V5. Yes, possible. Let us try V3. V3 is connected to V6. Yes, V3 is connected to V5. But V3 connecting to V4, no, crossover cannot be avoided. All right. Therefore, Kuratowski's second graph, which is a complete bipartite graph of 3 vertices, is also non-planar. How many edges are there? 9 edges here. In K5, how many edges were there? 10 edges. Therefore, K5 is the first non-planarity with minimum number of vertices, whereas K33 is the first non-planarity with minimum number of edges. Here, minimum number of edges, as minimum as 9 edges, make it non-planar, and K5 as minimum as 5 vertices make that a non-planar. Okay, so now presence of K33 in a graph makes the graph non-planar. All right, that is all. Again, here you can see this is also a regular graph. What is a regular graph? Because the degree of every vertex should be same. And again, you can see here, if you remove a vertex, this becomes planar. If you remove an edge, surely it becomes planar. So removal of an edge makes it planar. Removal of a vertex makes it planar. It is a regular graph. So K5 is Kuratowski's first non-planarity. K33 is Kuratowski's second non-planarity. K5 is with minimum number of vertices. K33 is with minimum number of edges. All right. Okay. Good. So first non-planarity with minimum number of edges is K33. That's what I have just told you now. So I have already told all these things. It's a regular graph. Minus an edge becomes planar. Minus a vertex surely becomes a planar. So if K33 becomes a subgraph, K33 becomes a subgraph, then the graph becomes non-planar. So here it is not written as now planar like it was written. It is non-planar. All right. So if the graph contains a K33, Kuratowski's component, then it is non-planar. Okay. So now let us see slight deviation. What is homeomorphism? Homeomorphism is introduction of one vertex of degree 2 or removal of one vertex of degree 2 which is present in the graph, only degree 2. So how? If it is one edge, I can break this edge and introduce one vertex like this. So all that I have introduced this without spoiling the simplicity of the graph. I have just introduced one more vertex of just degree 2 so that the transition is just through that vertex. Then this graph, this edge or this graph is said to be homeomorphic to this, and conversely this is also said to be homeomorphic to this. So this is homeomorphic to this. In this case, I am introducing a vertex of degree 2. In this case, a vertex of degree 2 is eliminated, is dissolved. Okay, is their homeomorphic representations. So if a graph contains a subgraph isomorphic or homeomorphic to either K5 or K33, then the graph is non-planar. Okay, then the graph is said to be non-planar. All right. So now a maximal planar graph. What maxima? Simple planar graph. Okay, simple. So a maximal simple planar graph. Just in the beginning of the class, I was telling, is composed of straight line edges. It's a very involved proof. It has got a proof involving geometry. I shall not take up the proof now, not necessary, because we are more algorithmic oriented people. It is a straight, they're all made up of straight line edges. So maximum planar graph is that graph When do you call that graph to be planar? The graph should be planar when additional edge cannot be inserted without either spoiling the planarity or without spoiling the simplicity. So if I insert a new edge, the graph should still continue to be simple and the graph should still continue to be planar. If such a thing can be possible, then it is called a maximal planar graph. And maximal planar graph is composed of only straight line edges. Okay, so we have already seen 4 vertex complete graph, 3 vertex complete graph. 3 vertex complete graph definitely is a planar graph, you know that. And this makes one, so these are all 3 straight line edges. And now this is a 4 vertex complete graph. And this is also a maximal planar graph because you can't add any other edge into this without spoiling the planarity of the graph or without spoiling the simplicity of the graph. Of course, I can draw one more edge like this, but simplicity of the graph is drawn. It's a parallel edge. No doubt, parallel edge still makes it planar, but simplicity of the graph is lost. Now, you have seen one interesting point over here. This is the basic structure, the triangle. You can see the basic structure here. And the next vertex is just on the top of the pivot vertex. And then 2 lines are drawn. That's all. Okay. And you can also see one interesting thing, that a maximum planar graph is made up of only triangles. See, here is one triangle. Here is one triangle. Here is one triangle. And look at the even external region. External region also has got 3 edges. So even the external region is composed of 3 edges. Internal regions are also composed of 3 edges. In fact, this is a very interesting, this can be a very interesting data structure also. You people are going to be very specialists in data science, data information science. And this type of data structure probably becomes very important. See, in this data structure, look at this. I have stored some data here such that the data here has a neighborhood with this data, whatever has been stored here. And similarly, this data has a neighborhood with this data. And in the next level, let us see, this is a graph of 4 vertices. Let us see what is the maximal planar graph of 5 vertices. I think you must have already been able to, you must have been imagining, put the next vertex here and connect it, that's all, by straight lines. Let us see, that is all. Okay. Now you see the beauty of the data structure here. Again, before getting into data structure, data storage, you just look here again. This is a triangle. This is a triangle. This is also a triangle. This is also a triangle. Outside is also triangle. So maximum planar graph not only is composed of straight line edges, and a maximum planar graph is the composition of triangles only. That is another interesting point. Okay. These are a lot of geometrical relevance, very interesting geometrical relevance. This has got geometrical graph, geometrical data structure. So now I was telling you about this neighborhood of this data. Whatever the data stored here has a neighborhood relevance with this, or some association with this directly. There is some association with this directly, whereas the data stored here does not have any association with this, does not have a direct association with this. Similarly, the data stored here does not have direct association with this, whereas the data stored here has some association with this, has some association with this, has some neighborhood with this, has neighborhood here. So it's a neighborhood, first neighborhood, close within itself, and first neighborhood, but second neighborhood is not possible at all. Second direct neighborhood cannot be possible. So these are types of interesting interpretations that could be possible with this maximal planar graph. And maximal planar graph, as I said, is made up of straight line edges, and it is just triangularizing the region. Okay, all right. Okay, so regions, I just now told you about regions. windows, faces. A planar graph divides a plane into regions, into faces, into windows. Let us consider a three-vertex, three-edge graph, which is a complete graph. Surely it makes one internal face or the finite face and one external face, which is also triangle and which is infinite infinite phase. So this is the infinite region, this is a finite region, this is a finite window, this is an infinite window, this is a finite phase, this is an infinite phase. So two phases are there, two phases, one finite ABC and another infinite ABC. So how many vertices are there? Three vertices. How many edges are there? Three edges. How many faces are there? Two faces. Can I relate this three and two? Yes, there is a formula. I shall come to that formula a little later. Now let us take a four vertex complete graph. So here is one finite phase. Here is another finite phase. Here is one more finite phase. And here is an infinite phase. Is that okay? So there are how many? Four phases. So three interior phases. Internal phases is ABC and another internal phase is ADC. Another internal phase is BDC or BCD and external phase is BAD. External phase is BAD. So that's infinite here. Okay. So if I draw the same graph, same four vertex complete graph in a different way, again, this should have been not G33, this should have been considered G46, G46, Javed, G46, okay? But this is a different version of this representation. Here is one planar representation, this is another isomorphic planar representation, but only difference is I told in the previous BAD was infinite region. BAD has now become a finite region, whereas BCD, which was an infinite region in the previous version, has now become, which was a finite version in the previous representation. Am I right? Yes, BCD was a finite region in the previous version, has now become an infinite region. Okay, so interior faces are these, external face is this. So you can really see that any finite face can be made an infinite face and an infinite face can always be made a finite face. So once the graph is planar, it has several geometrical isomorphic representations with different regions becoming infinite faces at a time. All right, so you can see here ADB becomes a external face here, whereas ACD is an internal face, DCB is an internal face, ACB is also an internal face, ADB becomes an external face, which was earlier ADB, it was an internal face here. All right, so this becomes now there are how many vertices? There are four vertices and six edges, and number of faces of four. Okay, number of faces of four, number of faces four, number of vertices is four, edges is six. Can you relate it? So number of faces is equal to total number of edges minus total number of vertices plus 2. E minus n plus 2. We will prove it. We will derive this formula, but then you now see that total number of faces available in a planar graph is always E minus n plus 2. Yeah, edges minus n plus 2. Okay. All right. Okay. So a planar graph can have many planar isomorphic representation. Just now I told you that. An infinite region is one planar representation can become a finite region in another planar representation and vice versa, which I have told you. Any finite region can be mapped onto an infinite region. So these are all very interesting observations. They have got plenty of algorithmic relevance. Okay, they have got the different, in fact, they have all advantages in data mining and data warehousing application. The way in which you look at the entire warehouse, particularly if it is a planar graph representation, as a beautiful connotation, because a finite region can be made an infinite region, and neighborhood of the finite regions can be changed, can be swapped. These are all interesting things. Okay, all right. Now, if I add a parallel edge, so obviously by adding a parallel edge, simplicity of the graph may be lost, but planarity will not be lost. Why? Because if you add a parallel edge, number of edges becomes one more, number of faces also will become one more. So f is equal to e minus n plus 2 still will hold good. F become one more because e becomes one more. That's all. So still the formula holds good. If you put a pendant edge, it will be simply hanging in one of the region. That's all. Therefore, number of regions will not be altered. So if you put a pendant edge, n becomes one more, e becomes one more. So formula still remains same. F remains still the same. Okay. Here f increases by 1 because only e increases by 1. Here e also increases by 1. N also increases by 1. So 1 gets cancelled. So number of faces remains same. If a self loop is inserted, only what happens is one edge gets increased. When one edge gets increased, face also gets increased by 1. So presence of parallel edge, presence of pendant edge, presence of self loop will not spoil the planarity. Surely it would spoil the simplicity of the graph. That is no problem. But planarity will not be spoiled. Conversely, if you want to study whether a graph is planar or not, the parallel edges shall not affect, pendant edges shall not affect, self loops do not affect. Therefore, better remove all of them. You remove all of them, and the resultant residual graph should be planar. How can it be planar? You have already seen that graph should not contain K5 or K33 as a subgraph. If it somewhere contains K5 or somewhere contains K33 as a subgraph, it will not be a planar graph. It becomes a non-planar graph. English is beautiful, English is easy, but searching it is very difficult problem. Okay. Therefore, if a simple planar graph, what's a simple planar graph? Without parallel edges, self loops, and also pendant edges is planar, then that continues to remain planar with parallel edges, with self loops, with pendant edges. So planar graph in with parallel self loops and pendant edges planarity shall not be affected. Therefore, as a first step, we shall just get rid of all this. Okay. So now this point, like with the point which I mentioned, a finite region can be mapped into infinite region. A finite window can be mapped into an infinite window, will be demonstrated through stereographic projection. And this is a beautiful projection. Again, it has got a lot of geometric relevance. All of you should listen to this very, very carefully. And I shall be telling you what are the things expected from you to be done over here. But before that, you first understand what is stereographic projection. Stereographic, this is a plane. This blue color one is a plane. And of course, if a graph is planar, you see here, the graph is planar, all edges are embedded in this plane and no edge crossover. Therefore, this is a planar graph. Now, in this planar graph, you have already seen that this is a finite region. This is a finite window. This is another finite window. And this is the infinite region. Okay, this is the infinite region. Now, I have got to show that I can transform this infinite region into a finite region. By doing so, one of the finite region becomes an infinite region. All right. Okay. So this is the problem. So what I am going to do is I am going to make use of stereographic projection. Is as follows. This is the two-dimensional plane, and on the two-dimensional plane, a sphere, a ball is going to be placed. So at the mid of the plane, at the center of the plane, you put the ball. The sphere touches the plane at only one point, and that particular point, definitely with reference to sphere, we can recognize it as south pole of the sphere, south pole of the ball. So the pole which is opposite to the south pole is essentially the north pole. So this is the north pole point. This is the south pole point. Okay. So here is a point on the 2D plane. But this is the point. So this point can be a vertex, or this point can be a point anywhere on the edge. Okay. This is simply a point. So vertex is also a 2D point. Any point on the edge is a 2D point. Any point on the edge is a 2D point. Like that, P is a 2D point. So P is a 2D point. Now you connect this P with the north pole. Connect it with the north pole. That is what is called stereographic projection axis. Axis of stereographic projection. Or looking at the north pole, look at the point. The line of sight passes through, penetrates through this sphere and touches the P. All right. So it's a straight line, no refraction effect. We are not assuming any refraction index for this sphere. Or naturally, if you introduce refraction index, there are another beautiful geometrical problem. I will not, but that does not mean I should not ask in the examination. I can, in the final assessment, I could tell that the sphere has got some refraction index also. All right. Okay, I'm giving you some hint. All right. So now this is refraction less sphere. Therefore, it is direct line of sight. So north pole is connected to this point P. So that pierces through this sphere at one point, at only one point. The other point is north pole. The other one comes out at the north pole. The line comes out at north pole, enters the sphere at one point. That point is the P dash point on the surface of the sphere. Okay. So you know the coordinate of south pole, because you know it is a plane. You can, the midpoint of this plane is the coordinate of south pole. Add the third z-axis, the height z is 0 for south pole, and north pole naturally it is a diameter. So it is a length at the diameter. You can assume a suitable sphere of suitable radius. All right. Suitable radius, some R factor. So the north pole will be same X value, same Y value as north, the south pole, and Z will be D, or 2R will be Z. So you can decide the midpoint. Midpoint, surely the central point of sphere will be same X value, same Y value as south pole, but Z value will be R only, not 2R, R only. Okay, assume some suitable value for R. Okay, all right. Okay, so now how to get this point P dash? How to get this point? So this point P dash, you know, is the point of concurrence of the spherical surface of radius R, with the center lying here. What is the center? Center as the x-axis, x value as that of south pole, y value as that of south pole, and z value will be r. Okay. And north pole is x is same as south pole, y is same as that of north pole, and z is d equal to 2r. Therefore, you have an equation to the sphere. You know the equation to the line. So if you solve the equation to the sphere and the equation to the line, you will get all the unknowns x dash, y dash, and z dash of the 3D point. Okay. So I'm elaborately telling the procedure, but I have not done that derivation here. It is not a big derivation. After all, the derivation is write down the equation of the sphere. All right. You don't need to write down. Go to a Google and find out the equation for the sphere, and you now all you gotta do is derive it in terms of R and substitute various values of R, like 1 unit, 1.5 unit, 2 unit, 2.5 units, 3 units, whatever it is. All right. So make R a constant later when you are when you are writing down the algorithm. So for every point P, you will find a unique point on the surface of the sphere called P dash. Okay. So there are, how many points are there? 4 vertices are there. And how many points are there along the edge? There can be so many points. Because you can you can incrementally choose some points and map, and all of them will have the P dash representation over there. Is it okay? So you have got to map this graph drawn on this plane onto the surface of the sphere. Okay, the radius is so chosen quite big enough, not very big, big enough, such that when this paper is folded along the ball, naturally every point on the paper becomes a very presentable point on the sphere. In other words, every 2D point, on the plane has a 3D representation on the surface of the sphere. Now look at what's going to happen. Look at try to project a point which is at an infinite region here. Let us say when you project it, the point of penetration will be around the North Pole. All right, and all the points which are around the South Pole will be spread around South Pole only. Is that okay? So all the points which are in the finite window, which are around the South Pole, appear to be around South Pole only. All points in the infinite region, see, all points in the infinite region get clustered to be the points around the North Pole, get clustered around North Pole. In fact, I'm tempted to take you into a lot of pattern recognition activity. This is a very, very interesting nonlinear projection. The infinite points at the infinite window become concentrated, become clustered around North Pole by a nonlinear projection, right? Okay, anyhow, the point is all the infinite points have a clustered representation around the North Pole. Now you pull out the ball, put it back on the paper such that North Pole becomes the South Pole and South Pole becomes the North Pole. Okay, North Pole becomes the South Pole and South Pole becomes the North Pole. So in other words, you just give one twist to the ball, one full rotation to the ball, and make North Pole the South Pole and make the South Pole the North Pole and do the reverse stereographic projection. What do I mean by that? Project all 3D points on the surface of the sphere into 2D points on the plane surface through the reverse stereographic projection. What is reverse stereographic projection? Connect North Pole with P dash and project that line onto the surface of the plane. That becomes a 2D point. Now you get that. When you get that, because all infinite points were mapped around the old North Pole, because that now North Pole has become South Pole, and now the reverse projection makes that infinite point to be the points within the finite window, and what was earlier a finite window becomes an infinite window. All right, that is how you can establish that every finite window has an infinite representation and an infinite representation has a finite representation through stereographic projection. I have taken hardly 10 to 15 minutes time to explain this, but you can definitely see the potential for several algorithmic questions. Question number one, derive the points, all right? Derive all 2D representation as 3D representation, okay? And now look here, there is a line here, isn't it? There is a line, and you know the coordinate of this this vertex. You know the coordinate of this vertex. Therefore, you know the equation to this line. Now you have the point P here on the surface of the sphere. Another point, another vertex will be here, and you connect it on the surface of the sphere. It is not a line. It is an edge passing on the surface of the sphere, isn't it? It is a sort of geodesic. What is the equation to that contour? What is the equation to that contour? Here is a straight line equation, linear equation, but here it is 3D point, and somewhere here is another point, and that's a 3D point, and the contour is entirely different. It is along the circumference of the sphere, along the surface of the sphere. So it has got to be a contour. So what is the equation to that contour? So these problems are interesting. The other set of problems which could be interesting is incidentally find out the points on the surface of the sphere and project them back onto the plane and get the 2D point. Given the 3D points on the surface of the sphere, get the 2D point. Given the 2D points on the surface of the plane, get the 3D point. Given the equation to the line here on the 2D, get the equation to the line in the 3D. Given the equation to 3D, get the equation corresponding equation in 2D. Lot of interesting activities could be done. So here, most important point is the derivation of the algorithmic model, the derivation of the mathematical model. Afterwards, implementation is very, very easy. It is not a big issue at all because it is only getting x dash in terms of xy and r of the sphere, and y dash getting it in terms of xy and r and z dash. That's all. And reverse is this, where r gets r is just silence. How is it going to be silenced? You have got to find out. That's all. Okay. So the whole thing which I explained has been written. There is a unique, a point p dash for every point p. P dash is on the surface of the sphere. P is on the surface of the plane. Reverse projection gives P, that's a point on 2D, from P dash, which is projected from North Pole, which I have explained. A 2D surface is embedded on the surface of the sphere. The total 2D is embedded. It is just like this. You have a big laddu and you will close that laddu, keep that laddu safe, laddu safe with a paper covering that. So the point that paper covers that laddu. So in other words, when you open that paper, you will see the oil mark of that laddu. That oil mark was on the surface of the laddu. That gets transformed to the plane. That is all stereographic projection. The finite region around South Pole point is mapped around South Pole on the surface of the sphere. The infinite region is mapped around North Pole. Now, place the sphere on the surface of the plane upside down. That is, North Pole is placed in the position of South Pole and South Pole occupying the North Pole position. I would love to share that at least I have worked on this at least for 5 to 6 years on solving various pattern recognition problems, because the type of rotation that I can give it to the sphere can decide different types of classification or different types of projections possible. Okay, anyhow, I shall not get into the details now. The only point is here, only for stereographic projection, make South Pole the North Pole and make the North Pole the South Pole, all right, and then reverse it back. Okay, reverse the stereographic projection, region around the new South Pole, which is the region around the old North Pole, becomes a finite region. Region around the new North Pole, which was around the old South Pole, now becomes an infinite region. So what was earlier a finite region becomes an infinite region. What was earlier a finite region becomes an infinite region. It proves that finite region can be mapped onto infinite region and infinite region can be mapped onto finite region. Okay. So we were talking about the faces in a planar graph. Let's see, we know that the way it is drawn, it is very clear that this graph is a planar graph. All right. So this graph is a planar graph, and this face number 1 is triangular, is a polygon of 3 sides. Okay. Face number 2 is also triangular, a polygon of 3 sides. Face number 3 is a quadrilateral, a polygon of 4 sides. Region number 4, face number 4 is a triangle, a polygon of 3 sides. Region number 5 is a polygon of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's a pentagon. Pentagon, it's a polygon of 5 sides. Region 6 is a polygon of 6 sides. So it's a hexagon. It's a polygon of 6 sides. Region number 7 is again a quadrilateral. It's a polygon of 4 sides. So in other words, this planar graph has 1, 2, 3 triangles, 2 quadrilaterals, 1 pentagon, 1 hexagon, and 1 external region of so many edges. Okay. So we will classify that. There are totally 8 faces and there are totally 20 edges and there are 14 vertices, and 8 can be derived as E minus N plus 2. F is equal to E minus N plus 2. Javed, E minus N plus 2. Alright, Javed? Okay, F is equal to E minus N plus 2, not E plus N minus 2. E minus N plus 2. Alright, E minus N plus 2. Okay, alright. Okay, so here it is correct. 20 minus 14, 20 minus 14 plus 2 is equal to 8. Okay, so printing mistake. Okay, plus and minus are swapped. So now it is a simple planar graph. No doubt I have not allowed any parallel edges. I have not allowed any self loops. I have not allowed any pendant edges. Okay, it's a simple planar graph. So there are 3 triangular faces, 1, 2, 4. There are 2 quadrilateral faces, 3 and 7. There is only 1 pentagonal face, face number 5. There is 1 hexagonal face, face number 6. And the external face is a 12-sided polygon. It's a 12-sided polygon. You find out that it's an exterior face. All right. What I'm doing is I'm slowly taking you to the derivation of the formula F is equal to E minus N plus 2. All right. Okay. Good. So before going to that, let's concentrate on any particular face. All right. Let us concentrate on face number 4. The face number 4 has 4 vertices. All right. Number 1. Number 2 has got 4 edges. Good. Very good. And every edge is an edge between only 2 faces, or in other words, every edge shares 2 faces. Every edge is a common boundary between the 2 faces. So in other words, every edge will be counted in 2 faces, with 2 faces. Is it okay? All right, that's point number 1. Point number 2, there are 4 vertices, as I said. All right, it makes a geometrical figure. So now with reference to this face, this is the interior angle, isn't it? This is the interior angle because of this vertex M. All right. This is the interior angle because of the vertex B. This is the interior angle because of the vertex C. This is the interior angle because of the vertex N. This is the interior angle of vertex N with reference to face 3. Whereas this is the exterior angle of vertex N with reference to face 3. Is it okay? For example, with reference to face 6, interior angle of G is so much. G is so much. Exterior angle of G with reference to face 6 is so much. Is it all right? So much. Is it okay? But this exterior angle, you can see, is interior angle of some other face and another angle of some other face, isn't it? Other angle of some other face. You can see here clearly in M. If you see it M, this is the interior angle and this is the total exterior angle, and that total exterior angle is distributed as an interior angle of this, interior angle of this, interior angle of this, and an interior angle of this. Is it okay? So that's a beautiful interpretation. Good. Okay. I'm trying to tell that. So total angle around one point, let's say A, around A is totally, it makes an angle 360 degrees total. It is equal to 2 pi, out of which one part is interior and the remaining part is exterior. Is it all right? Okay. All right. So B, this is the interior angle. What is marked here is the exterior angle. Is it all right? And what is interior plus exterior is 2 pi. All right. Okay. So what is total interior angle? Total interior angle because of A, total interior angle because of B, because of C, and because of D. And you know, in a quadrilateral, it is 362 pi. In a quadrilateral, total interior angle, sum of total interior angle is 2 pi, it is 360. What is total exterior angle? Total exterior, to calculate total exterior angle, first you should know what is total angle. Total angle because of A, which is 2 pi. total angle because of B, total angle because of C, total angle because of D, which is 4 times 360. Is it all right? 4 times 360 minus 1 360 here, which is total interior angle, is the total exterior angle. So total exterior angle is 3 into 360. 1, 4, 360 minus 1 into 360 becomes 3 into 360, which is 3 into 2 pi, which is 6 pi. Total interior angle is 2 pi. Total exterior angle is 6 pi. What is the difference? Total interior angle is 2 pi. Total exterior angle is 2 pi. The difference is 4 pi. 4 pi is the difference. Okay. That is a constant difference. 4 pi. Okay. So what is total interior angle? It is 2 pi. Can I put it in the form of a formula? Yes. Total interior angle is 2 pi, which is a total number of sides is 4 minus 2 into pi. So 2 pi it becomes, isn't it? So P minus 2. So generalizing it for a polygon of P sides, total interior angle will be P minus 2 into pi. And what is the total exterior angle? Here it is 6 pi. So 4 plus 2 into pi becomes 6 pi. So total exterior angle is 6 pi, which is 4 plus 2 into pi. And I can write it as, in general, P plus 2 into pi. What is the difference between total interior angle and total exterior angle? It is 4 pi only, because P plus 2 into pi can be written as P minus 2 into pi plus 4 pi. So P minus 2 into pi is the interior angle, and a difference of 4 pi added to that becomes the total exterior angle. Is that okay? So this is the basic point, the basic relationship which will be useful in deriving the total number of faces is equal to E minus N plus 2. You are now ready with this basic formulation. With this basic formulation, we get into deriving the total number of faces. All right. So total number of faces is given by the Euler's formula, which is F is equal to E minus N plus 2. All right. An edge, I have already just now told you, an edge is a member in only two adjacent faces, right? I have told you, every line can become a serious algorithm. Please note that, because when I am stressing on that, there must be some interesting region. I could ask a question on how this, let us say, one data storage shapes one edge. Naturally, is dependent of one boundary of the data is one edge. So same boundary, the same edge will also be the boundary for another set of data also in a planar graph. Okay. All right. So let K3 indicate the number of triangular faces. Previous example, there were 3 triangular faces. Let K3 indicate the total number of triangular faces. P is equal to 3. And again, there is a printing mistake. Dr. Javed will note that. Let K4 indicate the number of quadrilateral faces. Not P is equal to 3. P should have been written 4. Let K4 indicate the total number of quadrilateral faces, or let K4 indicate the total number of P equal to 4-sided faces. Okay. Let K5 indicate the total number of pentagonal faces. P is equal to 5. This is block copying, effect of block copying. Okay, while making the slides. So K3 indicate the total number of triangular faces, K4 indicate the total number of quadrilateral faces, K5 indicate the total number of pentagonal faces. In general, let Kp indicate the total number of p-sided polygon, p-sided polygon. Now P can be equal to 3, p-sided polygon. All right. So now what is the total number of faces? K3 plus K4 plus K5, etc., Kp, etc., etc. That is equal to the total number of faces. What is the total number of faces? One of them definitely is an exterior face. Which one I do not know. One of them is an exterior face. All the remaining are interior faces. So what is the total number of faces? K3 plus K4 plus K5, etc., Kp, etc. will be the F. That is the total number of faces. Okay, I have got to derive this. Now what is K3? K3 is a total number of triangular faces, total number of quadrilateral faces, total number of pentagonal faces, total number of p-sided faces equal to one of them. Which one of them is the exterior face? I do not know, but one of them is the exterior face. All right. Now, every triangle, what is the interior angle? You know, there are K3 triangles. So total interior angle because of K3 number of triangles is K3 times the interior angle of every triangle. Similarly, you know what is the interior angle of every quadrilateral and what is the total interior angle because of all K4 times the K4 times the total interior angle of every quadrilateral. That's all. So 3 edges compose K3, 4 edges compose K4, P edges compose KP, and so on. 4 edges compose K4. Okay, all right. So how many edges are there? K3 has got, every K3 has 3. Total number of edges with a triangle will be 3K3. 4K4 with quadrilaterals. 5K5 with pentagon. PKP with this. And every edge is a member of exactly 2 faces. Therefore, this shall indicate the total number of edges associated with all triangular faces, all quadrilateral faces, all pentagonal faces, all p-sided polygonal faces, and therefore total number of edges should be equal to 2e, twice the number of edges, because every edge is just common between only 2 faces. Is that clear? So it becomes 2e. So this is one major relation. Another relation is the interior angle and exterior angle. So let us see angular contribution. 3 minus 2 into pi is that of a triangle. P minus 2 into pi is the interior angle of a polygon. 3 minus 2 into pi is a triangle. We got K3 number of triangles. So this is the total interior angle due to all triangles. This is the total interior angle due to all quadrilaterals. This is the total interior angle due to KP. One of them is an exterior face. Which one I do not know, but I know the difference. The difference is 4 pi. So these are all total interior angle and the difference is 4 pi. So that must be equal to 2 pi n because there are n vertices. Total angle is 2 pi n. Is it okay? So now cancel this pi all through. When you cancel this pi all through, what you get, one of the faces is exterior, that is why 4 pi is added. So you cancel that pi all through. Pi is cancelled. There is one more mistake. It should be equal to 2n. Okay, so pi is cancelled. So when pi is cancelled, it becomes 2n. Now all that I do is just 3k3, 4k4, pkp. I will put them together. Minus 2 taken common. Then k3 plus k4 plus k5 etc. 3k3 plus 4k4 plus pkp. What is that? Just see here. It is 2e. All right. And k3 plus k4 is f. That's all I do. Okay. So this is 2e minus 2. This is f. This is plus 4 equal to 2e. And that's all. So 2e minus 2f plus 4 is equal to 2n. Or in other words, e minus f plus 2 is equal to n. In other words, f is equal to e minus n plus 2. That's all. Okay. So total number of faces in a planar graph is e minus n plus 2, provided it is a planar graph. All right. Who tells it is a planar graph? Kuratowski. How does Kuratowski tell? A graph should not contain a subgraph which is isomorphic to K5 or isomorphic to K3. It should not contain any subgraph anyway. And this search is a very big search problem. All right. Okay. So let us think of two inequalities. 3k3 plus 4k4 plus pkp etc. is equal to 2e. We know that. And total number of faces. Let us say let us approximate it as 3f. So 3f, total number of faces, f is surely less than or equal to 2e. Is that okay? So 3f is less than or equal to 2e, and f is less than or equal to 2 by 3e, or e is greater than or equal to 3 by 2f. So this is one important inequality. One important inequality is total number of faces is always less than or equal to 2 by 3e. When will it be equal? Only when all of them are triangular faces. When will all the faces be triangular? Only when the graph is maximal planar graph, because maximality of planarity is triangularization of the graph. Okay, so making use of this inequality, putting this inequality into this, we get another interesting inequality. In place of f, I put an inequality less than or equal to 2 by 3e, and then simplify this. When I simplify this, I get this inequality is less than or equal to 3n minus 6. This inequality is most important. If this inequality given n and d, this is just a relationship between n and d, no f is there. See, it's an inequality between only n and d. Given a graph, that is A matrix or X matrix, you know E and N, and you just check whether inequality is satisfied or not. If this inequality is not satisfied, then it is certainly not a planar graph. Could you get that? If this inequality is not satisfied, then it is surely it is a non-planar graph. But if this inequality is satisfied, then it may be a planar graph. Okay, it is not a sure test, but it is a necessary test. It is not a sufficient test, but it is a necessary test. So for a graph to be planar, this inequality should be satisfied. But satisfaction of this inequality does not assure that the graph is planar. But not satisfying this inequality surely assures that the graph is non-planar. Is that clear? So this is just an inequality relating only E and N. And only when this is satisfied, then we try to calculate the number of faces, provided the graph is proven to be planar. All right. Okay. So now look at something very interesting called graph reduction, which already is known to you. If there is a vertex of degree 2, it is a I can do the homeomorphic reduction, which was introduced in one of the earlier slides. This is because of homeomorphism. You know that parallel edges, as already told, you can remove the parallel edges, you can remove the self loops, you can remove the pendant edges. They also would reduce the graph. Now let us see. That's because of parallel edges. All right, let us see. I know that the way it is drawn itself shows that it is a planar graph, but then we do not know in the matrix form it is planar or not. Okay, so what we have got to do is apply this graph reduction on the matrix, which means matrix reduction. We have got to do matrix reduction. How matrix reduction has got to be done? I got to identify the parallel edges, or I have got to identify these homeomorphic edges. See here, there is a homeomorphic edge here. So I reduce this homeomorphic edge. All right. When I reduce this homeomorphic edge, I remove this homeomorphic edge, that becomes a direct edge. So this is that. And again, I can find homeomorphism. Again, I reduce it. Then it becomes parallel edge. This becomes one direct edge. So that becomes parallel edge. So now because it is parallel edge, I shall apply this rule of reducing parallel edge. So that becomes a simple edge. Now again, luckily I find a homeomorphism here. So when I find a homeomorphism, remove this vertex of degree 2, it becomes parallel edge. Because it is parallel edge, I shall replace it by a single edge. Again, I find a homeomorphism here, a vertex of degree 2. I shall convert it into an edge, which becomes parallel edge. And that because it is parallel edge, I can convert it to a single edge. So starting from this graph, the graph got reduced to a single edge. Because I know single edge is planar, this graph is planar. So all that I have done is, starting from this matrix, I have reduced to this matrix, and this matrix has got only one edge and two vertices. And if that gets reduced to a matrix of one edge and two vertices, then because that is planar, this graph has got to be planar. All right, that's one graph reduction. We will do another simple exercise, but here purposefully I have taken this homeomorphism inside the region. Okay, so now you can see it's a homeomorphic vertex. I shall remove that homeomorphic vertex. That becomes a parallel edge. Parallel edge is converted into a simple edge, and again homeomorphism, that becomes parallel edge, and that's converted into a simple edge, and again homeomorphism, that gets converted into parallel edge. Now you remove the parallel edge, it becomes a simple edge. So this graph becomes again an edge. Therefore, this is planar. Therefore, this graph is planar. Okay, this is graph reduction. Naturally, matrix reduction could be A matrix, could be X matrix. All right. Okay. So the whole rule is planar graph detection is simple. Decompose a graph into components or into blocks. Remember what is block? A separable graph. By cutting a vertex, by splitting a vertex, articulation vertex or a separable vertex, you will get blocks. All right. If you remove a vertex, it becomes components. But here it is not removal in terms of block. Components are naturally existing in case of a disconnected graph. So decompose a graph into blocks or into connected components and reduce each connected component, reduce each GI into HI. If the reduction HI, if it becomes a vertex, because vertex is planar, that GI is planar. If it becomes an edge, because an edge is planar, GI is planar. If that reduction becomes a 4-vertex complete graph, then also it is planar, because we have already proved that 4-vertex complete graph is planar, then also planar. So I have got to essentially do graph reduction, and if the graph reduction ends into one of these three, then it is planar. Otherwise, the graph definitely has at least 5 vertices or more than 5 vertices, and the edges will be more than or equal to 7 in number, because 6 vertices and 4 vertex, 6 edges is a planar graph. 6 edges will be there in a 4-vertex graph, so it is more than 6 edges and more than 5 vertices, in which case I have to start with HI and then try to check whether it is planar or non-planar. Now with HI, I apply that inequality. You remember E is less than or equal to 3n minus 6. If that is satisfied here, straight away you can declare that it is non-planar. If that is not satisfied, if that is not satisfied, it is non-planar. If that is satisfied, then it may be planar. So inequality test is done on this. If inequality gets satisfied, it may be planar. Then you have got to check whether it is really planar or not. Okay. All right. So check if inequality. If this inequality is satisfied, it may be planar. If it is not satisfied, I am very happy. It will be non-planar. Okay. The real test is a necessary and sufficient condition for a graph to be planar is that G should not contain either of the Kuratowski's graphs. Okay. So it should not contain K5. It should not contain K33. Okay. All right. Okay. Telling is easy. That is why your final assessment, I have told, maybe for 24 hours. Okay. Now, next is, this is a planar graph. Now, there is a very, very interesting thing called dual graph of a planar graph. So, let us see how to draw a dual graph. A dual graph is defined only for a planar graph. For no other graph, you can define duality. Duality is defined with reference to planar graphs, where every face, you can see that these are all faces: F1, F2, F3, F4, F5, F6. These are all faces. I want to draw a graph such that face becomes a vertex. Understand that? Face, vertex, duality. So every face in a planar graph should be drawn in such a way, new graph should be drawn in such a way that every face represents a vertex in the dual graph. So face, vertex, planarity. The number of faces is F should become total number of vertices in the dual graph. All right. So what I'm trying to tell is this: total number of new vertices should become equal to number of faces. Later you will see the total number of new faces will definitely be equal to the number of vertices, and the total number of new edges will remain the same edges. So these are all the relationships in the duality. Parallel edges will become series edges will become parallel edges. You will see it now. And self loops will become pendant edges will become self loops. Nullity of the graph becomes the rank of the graph becomes the nullity of the graph, and G star is indicated as dual planar. G is planar, primal planar. G star is dual planar, And because G is planar, dual is also planar, and these are the interesting relationships. Now, I could ask many interesting questions like, suppose I choose a spanning tree in the primal. What would happen to the spanning tree in the dual? Okay, suppose I choose a cut set in the primal. I can ask what is going to happen to the cut set in its dual. These are basic relationships. They are all the derived relationships. Now, let me first see how to draw the dual graph. As I said, these are all the faces, and every face should become a vertex. Now, how to draw the dual? So the way the dual is drawn is like this. So here is F1. Okay. Now you insert an edge. This becomes a new vertex. This becomes a new vertex. This becomes a new vertex. And these are all becoming newer. So for this region F1, which are the adjacent regions? The region F1 is adjacent to F4. The region is adjacent to F2. Is it okay? So now you cut one edge. So E1 is the edge between F1 and F4. You cut this edge and put a new edge. The green edge cuts the old gray edge. All right, it cuts. And now this edge connects these two adjacent faces. Is that okay? This is the new edge, the dual. Is it all right? Is it clear to everybody? So the old edge is replaced by a new edge, E1 dash, such that this edge, which is on the boundary of two faces, shall become adjacent, adjacency edge, connecting these two vertices. Now F1 is a vertex, F4 is a vertex. So now you can repeat it. So similarly, cut E2, and F1 connects to F4, cut E2. So the one, this is series edge. Now you can see the series. Now you can see the series edge, it has become parallel edge. Somebody should close down. So series edge E1 and E2 have become parallel edges, E1 dash and E2 dash. Okay. All right. So now there is one more face adjacency. F1 is adjacent to F2. So you have to cut E3, that becomes E3 dash. So this is the dual segment with regard to F1 and its adjacency. Now let us see what is the dual segmentation with F3. F3 connects F2 by cutting E4, E4 dash. F3 can cut E5, connect F4, E5 dash. F3 again can connect to F4. Of course, I could have shown it here also. So F4 cutting E6, and F3 connects to F4 by cutting E7, E7 dash. Now this edge E8 is inside F3, so it has got to cut. See carefully how it cuts. It cuts like this, and therefore a pendant edge becomes a self loop, E8 dash. Now if there is a self loop, F5. Now see what's going to happen. It cuts, and now a self loop becomes a pendant edge. Is it all right? Okay. Now the next one remaining is with F5 is done, F2 is also done, F1 is done, F3 is done, F6. So F6 cuts with F4 only, and then a self loop becomes a pendant edge. Now from all the previous diagrams, all these green, you see these green edges. Keep all these green edges and draw them. So this is the graph of all green edges. So that's also, you can see, is a planar graph. This is the dual graph to the given primal graph. Okay, where the number of faces have become number of vertices. Edges remain the same because every edge is replaced by a edge dash. So E star will remain E, and now you can count the number of faces here. The number of faces will become equal to number of vertices there. So now you can draw the dual of the dual, which becomes a primal graph. Dual of the dual, if you draw, it becomes a primal graph. Incidentally, a beautiful thing here is you can see the richness of homeomorphism and richness of the parallel edges. The graph reduction becomes very convenient now through the dual. Okay, anyhow, it's dual graph. So now I would leave it this as this is a four vertex complete graph, of course drawn as a non-planar representation. You know the planar representation of this graph, and draw what is the dual of 4-vertex complete graph. You verify that the dual of 4-vertex complete graph remains a 4-vertex complete graph. Therefore, a 4-vertex complete graph is said to be a self-dual graph. Remains, all right. There is one more duality. I think you should note down. You should try this. This duality is you should consider vertex edge duality. Vertex edge duality. All right. So you look here. If this vertex is there and this vertex is there, this vertex is adjacent to this vertex because of this edge. This vertex is adjacent to this vertex because of this edge, isn't it? Now you make the edge a vertex. You should represent an edge as a vertex such that the new edge which is drawn shows the adjacency of the old edges. So this edge is adjacent to this edge. This edge is adjacent to this edge. This edge is adjacent to this edge. So when I start with this, this becomes a vertex. This vertex should be adjacent to this vertex which represents this edge. Should also be adjacent to this vertex which represents this edge, and should also be adjacent to this vertex which represents this edge. Like that you should draw it. That is edge vertex duality. One is face duality, face vertex duality. Another is edge vertex duality. Every edge should become a vertex. All right. That does not mean every vertex becomes the edge. Every edge should become a vertex, and the edge incidence relationship should be maintained. Edge adjacency relationship should be maintained. So these are the two dualities. Okay. So this is really a lovely application in graph theory. The planarity. Planarity is a way of embedding the graph. The planarity is that the edges do not overlap. It starts with do not overlap. It has got a lot of applications. Printed circuit board is one such application in electronics. Embedded electronics has got a lot of interesting application. Civil engineering has got a lot of application because we want the non-overlapping edges. The construction of flyover is one such application arising out of planar graph. There are plenty of such interesting applications. Okay, all right. So this is what is planarity. Now, definitely, your work would be to imagine what are the possible questions arising out of this, which will definitely be a question for your assessment of 24 hours. Thank you very much. And the rest of the time over to Dr. Javed now for the discussion regarding assignment number 5 and 6. Thank you very much.